Alright guys, so just getting back from riding my GSXR 1000 after having it dyno tuned. Now, quick update on the bike, nothing's really been done to it. It's got a slip-on exhaust and that's it. So why would I get a stock motorcycle tuned? Well, quite a few reasons, and none the least of which was to get rid of a throttle issue. Actually, a few throttle issues. One was the fact that it was very on-off snatchy at low RPM. That deceleration fuel cutoff was making it so that when just cruising along in traffic, the bike was extremely jerky with very light throttle inputs. Now, that problem would also manifest itself in other areas. That snatchy throttle would also be found with the motorcycle on the side of the tire. Rolling through the apex of a long sweeper, for example, and you're holding slack throttle until you get to that apex, you start to roll into the throttle, and it would be a bit of a shove instead of a smooth power delivery. All of that has been eliminated now. It makes the bike easier to ride, more confidence inspiring, and just a lot smoother experience. So that was a big takeaway from this whole tuning experience for me, was just how much better the bike rode. Now, yes, this bike did pick up power. According to the chart, about 20 horsepower above about 10,000 RPM and on. But I gotta stop right there. See, this motorcycle was tuned on an axis dynamometer. And if you're not familiar with it, you're forgiven. Most folks think of dynos, they think of dyno jet. But in this case, the axis dyno is a little bit different and unique, which means that the power numbers can't really be translated one to the next. But what I will do is I'll explain to you how this dyno works and why I thought it was so cool. So the axis dyno uses a fan as its medium for load. Think of it like this. You know those old exercise bikes back when you were a kid that had the big fan up front, and the faster you would pedal, the more air that it would make? Well, that's how the axis dyno works. And the sound of it, well, it's kind of like you've strapped a motorcycle onto an air raid siren. It's pretty cool. But the big thing about an axis dyno that I liked was that it took all of that air that it was creating, pressurized air, mind you, runs it through a conduit and force feeds it right back to the face of the motorcycle. In essence, what it's doing is it's mimicking the ram air effect of that motorcycle going down the highway at 130, 150 miles per hour. It's doing that with the dyno itself in a way that regular fans, God, there's just no way they could even come close to mimicking that type of a condition. So for me, it was a very interesting experience to see the motorcycle on this dyno basically sounding like an air raid siren. And when that dyno is at full song, it is blasting air out the back of it. It's pretty amazing to see. So with all of that being said, are there any drawbacks to it? Well, not really. There's always going to be some weird idiosyncrasies from motorcycle to motorcycle, and with all of the different maps that are available, you can run into some oddities, like in a neutral map or something along those lines, where you might find a little bit of a high idle, but it always works itself down. No real issues though with the quick shifter. Everything seems to work pretty well in that respect. I know with some motorcycles, after a reflash, the downshift and the blipper can sometimes create a problem, but in this case, not so much, at least not at higher RPM, and nothing that would be unsettling. So I don't want to say that there's a zero difference there, but at low RPM, this thing was a little bit sketchy anyway on downshifts, and I just learned to manually fan the throttle and downshift it myself anyway. So really no harm, no foul. I gotta say that overall, I'm a lot happier with the way this bike runs. But we got to talk about the power, because if it got dyno tuned and it picked up power, what's it like to ride a GSXR 1000 with an extra 20 horsepower at the rear tire? It's pretty cool. But I will say this, I will be re-gearing my bike now. I'm going to take a little bit of the aggressiveness out of the rear gear set. I'm going to take one tooth off the back, mainly for this. Well, for starters, to give it a little bit longer legs on the freeway as in cruise conditions, but in third and fourth gear, guys, with the tune, this bike is wheelie happy. And I don't mean wheelie as in a different way to say really. I mean, it wants to run the front tire up in the air. which is fun, don't get me wrong, and the bike is incredibly predictable and incredibly stable on the back of the tire. It's something I really like about this bike a lot. But the thing is that it gets a little bit, well, it's predictable in how it pulls the front tire off the ground, but I would prefer that that front tire stay a little bit closer to earth when I'm really into the throttle and in those third gear, fourth gear, and honestly, guys, even into fifth gear, it's trying to float that front tire. So it's very fun. It's exciting, but I will be moving to a 44 tooth rear sprocket just to take a little bit of the bite out of it, give it a little bit longer legs on the freeway, but to allow me to hopefully take a little bit better advantage of the extra power that I'm making. Good problem to have, right? But anyway, guys, that's the experience in a nutshell. I had a good time, was able to hang out with some friends, got to see my bike on the dyno. I apologize for losing my footage. It drives me nuts when this kind of stuff happens, but it does. And so I'll just talk to you about it now. And hopefully if you're watching this video and you were thinking about getting your bike tuned, but you're a little bit on the fence, go ahead and do it. Do your research first. Find out who specializes in your mark and your brand. Go with that and you will be very happy with the results. But with that, guys, post up your comments. Let me know what you think. Have you gotten your bike tuned? Share it with us. And with that, hope to catch you on the next one.